Hello, friends of Northeast India Christian University and the new class for Christian Enterprise Development. Thank you, Dr. Lonchar, for the invitation. It is good to be among friends and partners with international ministries. I also bring you greetings on behalf of International Ministries Executive Director and CEO, Reverend Sharon Coe. My name is Zofia Drips, and I have the privilege of serving with International Ministries as the Associate Executive Director for Mission Advancement. One reason I enjoy what I do at International Ministries is because I can integrate my prior years of experience in marketing, in advertising, business development, and technology and telecommunications with mission and ministry. If you are sitting here today and you're feeling unsure whether you made the right decision, or if you really think this is the time, but are worried about how it may turn out, then I affirm from experience that acting on faith is hardly ever an easy or comfortable process. We often cannot see what God is doing when we're going through it. Let me take you back to an unexpected day I had at work in 1985. In the back of my car were boxes full of things I had just cleaned out of my office. And when I came home, my husband said, "What is all this?" And I shared that the telecommunications company I had been working with just sold to an overseas buyer, and they were closing our offices. I and those I worked with no longer had a job. I wasn't sure of anything on that day, but my husband replied, "You always talked about starting a business. Maybe now is the time?" Losing a job is not the way I thought God would be speaking to me. And I would not say becoming an entrepreneur in 24 hours was easy either. But years later, after I sold the business to another owner, because God called me to another opportunity, it was amazing to look back and see what God accomplished with one person willing to take a little risk and act on faith. And today, I want to encourage each of you, pastor, entrepreneur, student, teacher, non-government organization leader, theologian, professor, and all of you who are seeking to meaningfully impact your communities. God has a way of weaving together your experiences, your difficulties, your joys, as well as your struggles in life for good. We read in Jeremiah 29:11, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you a hope and a future." Very much like the path that God led me through, God can use you to offer hope and a future, not only for your families, but for the communities around you. The world can see evidence of God through what God can make happen when you are involved in meeting the needs around you in practical ways. If we genuinely believe we can be the hands and feet of Christ, then Christian enterprise can be just as holy work as preaching the gospel. This is why it is important for Christians to engage in social and economic development. In Philippians, we read, "Let each of you look out not only for his own interest, but also for the interest of others." If others witness us doing something about the problems that we see, something that is unselfish, something honest and kind, it allows them to see Jesus alive in us. It is important for others to see our faith. When we're surrounded by people who worry and fear uncertainty, You can be an example of faith. And when others are giving up and discouraged, especially after a pandemic, allow them to see that you trust in God. Isaiah 41:10 reminds us, do not be afraid, for I am with you. Do not be discouraged, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. In Deuteronomy 31, verse 8, God affirms, the Lord himself goes before you and will be with you. He will never leave you nor forsake you. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged. You can live out your faith by loving your neighbors as God has called us to do. You can create social value if you're willing to put in time and energy and see how slight changes can add up to larger economic impact right where you live. It's important for others to experience our good deeds, which bring God glory. Christian engagement in social and economic development needs to be visible and practical. Your deeds give evidence of your faith, and if you view your work through the lens of Scripture, Christian social entrepreneurship is a good beginning. James 2 asks, what good is it, my brothers and sisters, if someone claims to have faith but has no deeds? Suppose a brother and sister is without clothes and daily food, and if one of them says to them, go in peace, keep warm and well fed, but does nothing about their physical needs, what good is it? Wouldn't we all want to work to bring God glory? Yet, when we see poverty, too often we look up to God asking, God, why don't you do something? But God is asking us to be the ones to do something as he has enabled us. Matthew 5:16 encourages us to let your light so shine before men that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. It's important for us to plant seeds today so that God's blessing can impact the next generation. We all know how one small seed can eventually grow into an orchard that bears fruit and can feed an entire family. If you're convinced that we're called to make disciples of Jesus Christ, consider making disciples who create value for others and transform communities, who create enduring change that could feed the next generation. Over the course of this training, you will spend weeks unpacking the principles of faith-based social entrepreneurship that Dr. Bruce and Reverend Dr. Ann Borquist will expound to challenge your thinking. But let me give you the easiest yes and no exam right now. Question number 1, are you a Christian? If your answer is yes, everything you do in word and deed will stem from your faith. Question number 2, do you see the social needs around you and want something to be done about it? If you answered yes, then seek opportunities for positive social impact through your deeds. Question number 3, would you invest a little time, money, and energy if you could find a way to produce a little bit more than what you put in initially? If you said yes, you just defined how sowing seeds are the basics of entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurs find joy in serving others. And didn't Christ tell us that the one who will be greatest among you must first become a servant of all? Providing a product or a service that supplies someone's need tells another human being she or he is worth being served by you. Believe in the dignity and morality of honest business. Why is it that so many are persuaded that business is evil? If God calls us to work the soil, then we must believe in the dignity and morality of work. If we had a dishonest teacher, for example, or an evil professor, would we conclude that all learning is evil? Or if we had a dishonest tax advisor, would we conclude accounting is evil? Therefore, if you know of a business owner who's selfish or dishonest, it does not make all business evil. One way to change what the world thinks of God is to experience a Christian who reflects God's love, humility, patience, and honesty, and one who cares enough about a situation or a social condition to change it, not just for him or for herself, but for others too. Convergence occurs when your calling from God becomes integrated into all aspects of your life, your job, your beliefs, your spiritual life, your interactions with others. I can't even begin to imagine or understand the complex context in India or Nepal and other parts of Asia. However, I do understand that there are many needs. And so it is important that along with foundational courses in biblical studies, theology, church history, and practical theology, more courses like this need to be taught to encourage Christian enterprise, not just for us today, but for those who come after us. Let me leave you with this one last story. It's a famous Talmudic lesson about a man named Honey. One day, Honey was journeying on a road and he saw an elderly man planting a carob tree. He asked him, "How long does it take for this tree to bear fruit?" The man told Honey, "It takes about 70 years. Honey asked the old man, "Do you suppose you will live long enough to eat the fruit?" The man replied, "I eat fruit from mature carob trees that were waiting for me. So just as my fathers planted them for me, I plant these for my children." This story reaffirms how others will also benefit from your efforts. It could be today, or it might be in the future, but engaging in social enterprise and economic development is moral, benevolent, and could be preaching the loudest gospel ever heard. Thank you.